Hello, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. We're recording on December the 29th. This will come out after it's all done. So you made it through, you made it, right? 2023, the time of renewal, boy, after the pandemic and everything. So we'll be talking probably more about that on the show. But welcome to Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you get to get insights directly from a therapist in time in your car or personal time at home, knowing it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. This is the December month in review. So a new thing that we've begun to do where you get to kind of get a little bit of a round view of the whole month of the things that we've talked about. I add new things in that we didn't really get to talk about, but it's a nice way to kind of stop in with what the Through a Therapist's Eyes group has done. So we do this with Adam. How you doing, man? You're back.
I'm back.
He's back, and Neil sits down with us on the live.
Yep.
He's sitting over there. Mr. Neil Robinson comes out from the curtain behind us.
Yes. Paid no attention to the man behind the curtain. Oz.
What?
Oz.
He is Neil the Oz Robinson. How about that? Let's see. We are adding YouTube. I keep on saying this. Is this going to happen?
Yeah, the goal is to have it by start of this year. Probably, I would say probably about 2 or 3 episodes. We're going to hopefully.
So YouTube Live, look out for that. That's going to be kind of cool.
I don't know what's the difference between regular YouTube and YouTube
Facebook Live is going to be matched with YouTube Live so that you can take your platform of choice.
Okay.
Yeah, it just records live instead of the posted shows.
Right. Tie into the Google Analytics and some searching. And
Oh,
stuff
so
on that
like
side.
it's coming up when we do a show, it's going to be out there like then? Huh.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's immediately out there on Facebook Live now.
So this will.
You're being shot around the world right now, live.
So this would prevent any of my procrastinating because it'd be boom right there.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Indeed. 5 stars on all these things. Go, guys. 2023, we really want to bump this show up in its finding ability, its reach, and all of that. We do have some cool gifts. If you need to gift the gifts, we have the merchandise button on the website. I haven't talked about that in a little while, but we got some cool things that come around. It really helps support the show. We do need some new cameras. These mics are getting old. We've invested in our stuff, our own time, effort, and energy a few years ago. We probably need some stuff coming up to help us grow. So 5-star reviews, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your cousins, tell your, who else is there? Your coworkers, tell your...
Lions, tigers, and...
all those
all
people, man, help us grow. This is the human emotional experience that we endeavor to figure out together. So how'd your holidays go real quick, guys? I mean, how'd everything go? Made your waffles? Didn't eat your ham?
I had ham too. So
I didn't have ham.
Yeah, we covered that on the pre-mic deal. Yeah. Looking for New Year's, anything special?
I'm just thrilled my girlfriend's down here with me.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yep.
suck up.
Yeah. I believe
Young
that.
love.
No, I do believe that. I am just kidding, Julie. That was a joke. So we're going to start a new tradition with the month in review. What did we say we're calling this? In the News with Adam.
Yeah, we could do that.
In the News with Adam. So the way this works, maybe, Neil, you and I have to agree on 2 broad topic areas, and then we only get one of the stories that Adam has found that is mental health related for us to learn and discuss. So what are the 2 items with the news in review for?
So this kind of sucks because both these topics I really kind of want to touch base on. So
yeah, you were only going to do one.
okay.
Sorry.
You can say one for next month.
No, that's not the game. We have to choose one. 2 general topics, and we only get one.
So the word I'm going to give you is going to be kind of broad. So it's going to be so broad it's going to more than likely not give you an idea what it's about.
Oh, well, that doesn't help.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So the 2 words today would be health or politics.
Oh, we got to go health. I don't want to do politics. We already did that.
Okay,
Shit.
so
like
health.
weeks ago. Neil, you got any battle on me on that?
Nope. I can go all sorts of directions with health. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's do
the
health.
bad thing, the politics ones, actually want to talk about real briefly, but
Sorry,
I'll just
off the air.
I'll just mention it real briefly.
Oh, he can't stand himself.
Well, this is actually pretty good because the well, no, I can save it for next month. I can do that.
Okay.
I can save
If
it.
you leave it broad like this, then yeah, we can.
I'll leave it for next month because it'll still be around. So okay,
What's
so
the health?
So the health thing is the thing about COVID now. So China is getting like 9,000 cases a day, but they've recently opened back the borders.
Right.
And U.S. and Europe have actually imposed testing for people coming from China.
Yep, saw that.
So I can see that causing anxiety to people because what exactly is going on, because now they got their cases are going through the roof again.
Right.
And they're opening the borders, and now there's a lot of steps to test everybody. Everybody's like freaking out. Is there some kind of new COVID outbreak or whatever's coming out? So
yeah,
my thinking is something like that could actually cause stress for people.
Massively. That's an awesome story. I'm glad. Boy, I think I'm going to like this little segment, Mr. Adam, because it reminds me of one of the things that we talked a lot about during 2020 when we were doing the show is and let me see if I can get it right. Longtime listeners, email me in if I'm wrong. I was really calling and thinking a lot about three things that we were failing at all bunches. Neil, I don't know if you remember, but you were here yet. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Being calm instead of allowing fear to drive us, being informed so that ignorance doesn't drive us, or avoidance, so that ultimately we can land at making prudent decisions. Fear has driven so much of this stuff. Misinformation and avoidance has driven a lot of people's mindset with COVID, and we have not been making prudent decisions. We've failed on all three to manage this, and you're right. I hadn't thought about it in the way that you've brought it up, but China now has taken away their zero COVID policy because of a lot of protests and riots on I think is a good word from what I've seen, and people are going to be fearful. Oh, these Chinese people coming to our country, let's ban it. Is there new variants? Is there new are we going back to how things were before? Like
and plus the new testing that they're requiring. So
yeah, it has potential of creating great levels of anxiety and whatnot. Concerned about that. Not necessary.
I think a lot of people that either they're going to be triggered, or PTSD from the last 2 years where they're going to be very sensitive to it, or you're going to have a lot of people, I think, in the States that are going to become very apathetic because they're just tired of it. It's been 2.5 years of that turmoil. And then with the Twitter files and Elon Musk and the fact that you're finding out that the government censored people that were saying things that are now proven true. So there's a lot of stuff that I think it's going to be definitely different than it was the initial time.
Right.
But I think I think it's going to go either direction. Either people are going to get triggered because they're just flashbacks, like, oh no, I don't want this to happen again, or they just don't care, and they're just going to live their normal life because people have already been through it for 2 years. So.
Got to give a shout out to Rosemary if you're listening on Facebook Live. I haven't seen her in a long time. I love that lady. Met her a few years ago and all. So stick tuned. It's good to see you. I don't know, Neil. Life is normal, but life as normal now with additional levels of anxiety and stuff, I think it has potential for. Like we don't need to be fearful of this with, people from China coming to the States. I think we need to be prudent, and I hope that it is just a little bit of testing. Let's check things out. Let's know what's going on, but we don't need to be ignorant about it either. I'm telling you, it is a great review, Adam, because fear has driven so many people, and we need to remain calm. We have got to pay attention to information so we're not avoiding things or just being ignorant or having susceptibility to misinformation, and so that we can make prudent decisions.
Well, I think the thing that's going to scare people is that then they've reported their case rates have gone up
wildly,
but they're opening the border at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I can see that freaking people out.
Oh, big time. And it doesn't need to. I would maintain. It really doesn't need to. it is something that we're learning to cope with and deal with, and certainly I don't see us going back to all the lockdowns. I know there's some talks about masks again and how that's a part of normal society now, and look, we're coming through. It's funny. This is not as much of an issue new to human beings that we think it is. There's nobody trying to control us. There's nobody trying to kind of drive weird things at us. And then we'll get off of this after my story of Savannah. We went down to Savannah, Georgia for Christmas, right? And it was interesting because I was talking with my wife, Lisa, during one part of the cemetery that we viewed. We walked through this amazingly cool historical cemetery, and there was one whole section where it was just unmarked graves, and 750 people, if I'm correct. I'll think about the number. Maybe it was 1,750.
This war stuff?
No, yellow fever.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yellow fever just took people out.
Just happened so quick they just had to unmarked graves.
Yeah, and we think this is so new and some cabal and world conspiracy or somebody's trying to control us and all this stuff. It's like this is part of our human experience with pandemics and diseases and such. No reason to be fearful of it. Let's be prudent, but we got to be aware and we got to be calm. Right? That's where I'm landing. So let's go on. Shows and reviews. So what we've got, I should have said this up top end, but we got into that cool segment. And thank you for bringing that, Adam. I think that's going to be fun. We're going to review episode 207, What is Intellectualization? That was fun with a personal defense mechanism. And then we did 2009 that I'm really interested to talk to you, Adam, about.
2009.
2009.
We are well. You missed like 1,800 episodes, Adam.
That we'll get to 2009. Thank you for that. Wow, 2023, 2020. Listen,
we have like an extra O or something.
Yeah. Let's just put a couple extra O's in.
Okay.
I still have a little bit of vacation in me right now. I'm kind of getting back in the groove. I had my first day of clinical today, which was very busy, but maybe I'm still in Savannah a little bit. 209 was Can You Control Your Mind and Heart? Now I'm going to be interested in talking to you and kicking that around, Adam, a little bit. And then 210. What? Wow. Just
the Chris Odyssey, 2010.
Neil, take over, please. Just save me. 210, episode 210 was Dealing with Failure. Those are the three shows that were.
Did he actually type that, or did he just say it?
I just said it.
Okay.
Man. I don't know where my brain.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So what'd you think about November shows? It was kind of tough with the holiday season. We didn't want to take any kind of breaks. I just don't believe in breaks. Small breaks are good, but long breaks where we get all jacked up. But, we stuck with it all through the holidays. Pretty good shows, I think. Getting the panel a little bit jacked up, moving in and out. We missed Kasie a couple times, but pretty good shows. What you think?
I thought they were good. I think they were really good conversations. I like the variety of the shows. But I think you also hit some questions that people want to ask, the heart and mind, that's something that people always are fighting with. And how do you deal with failure? These are two big topics that
really,
and I think intellectualization is something I think a lot of people do. They don't probably realize as a defensive mechanism. So I thought this was a good run of shows.
Yeah.
So the intellectualization, yeah.
Intellectualization.
What he said. So is that, you say defense mechanism, is that when someone's trying to like take their time and like think out something instead of acting? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, too much thinking. You rationalize it, you make it too logical, you're not actually like doing anything with it. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, no, it's a psychological defense mechanism. It's one of the things that was left over actually from Freud. A lot of the stuff that happened with Sigmund Freud, we kind of have redone, relearned, we've studied. But Anna Freud, actually, his daughter, kind of brought around this that's really stuck that we do see that's hold serious water with psychological tendencies. There are several defense mechanisms. It was fun to hear Victoria go through and try to remember what is a psychological defense mechanism? Because she just came out of college and it all started flooding back at her. So that was fun to see. But you see things like repression. You see things. What are some of the other ones? Now I'm putting myself in the spot. Shouldn't have done that. You've heard of Oh gosh.
No, we like this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just totally brain farting. Anyway,
Save him, Neil.
Intellectualization is one of these defense mechanisms where you're really trying to avoid emotion, right? And so you're shutting down what you don't want to handle or what you feel like you can't handle very well. And so you do one of these things that defends yourself from the psychology of what you feel with emotion. And intellectualization, I think, is a big one that's misunderstood. And your description is perfectly on point for that. So
yeah, I think the defensive mechanisms are like, it's like cope. When you go past a coping mechanism, I think it's where it becomes negative. Is that kind of the idea of the defensive mechanism versus a coping mechanism?
Yes, we talked about that too. You're right, Neil. They can have their place, but generally speaking, when we're coping, we're doing that in a positive way. When we're using one of these defense mechanisms, it has all kinds of negative drawbacks, and we talked about that kind of on the show. But backing up before we start reviewing, which we did, but which one is your favorite and most interesting, Adam? That's the other thing that we like to see and hear. What is intellectualization, right? Was the first one. Can you control your mind and heart? Was the second one. And the third one, what was it?
Dealing with failure.
Dealing with failure. Thank you.
They all sound like good topics there. I mean,
yeah, but you got to choose one as Adam's favorite of the month of December. As Adam's most interesting.
I'm going to say the intellectualization, which is very hard for me to say.
You're not going to say intellectualization.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to say because even though it's harder for me to say, because when y'all were describing it, I think there's like a fine line there of like defense and like actual coping.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
I mean, because you're thinking out something like how to deal with it, and that's kind of the way to deal with it. But then I guess is it when you start like procrastinating because you're just not wanting to deal with it, and you just keep on thinking about it? Is that what the issue is you're talking about, or?
It's funny, right? Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea that you're just processing it over and over and over again without any actions. You know, when something happens to you, it goes back to rationalizing, things that you shouldn't rationalize or thinking about it repeatedly instead of just, like I said, you're doing something about it. Like if Julie gets you mad, you just sit there and process, and you never talk to her or basically attempt to fix the problem. You just think about it over and over and over again. And so that's what becomes the problem and I just realized these actually kind of, all three shows kind of tie together because you talk about controlling heart and
mind. Did you notice that?
Intellectualization, then like wow.
Oh, you guys are hysterical.
Intellectualization and then the controlling heart and mind, that's really kind of how you can deal with failure. So you really, did you do that on purpose, Chris?
A little bit.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, because honestly, but here's the thing. It's not just overthinking. It's changing the emotion in such a way where, and I think Kasie, if I remember correctly, was really able to kind of dive in nicely to this. It's more avoidance whenever you're doing these psychological defense mechanisms. You're intellectualizing something that is emotional and you're just turning it into pure logic. You're just turning it into facts and information instead of really dealing with what's hurting you or making you fearful or feeling something.
So when do you quantify that it's actually them putting it off and not just trying to figure out?
Well, I guess, you have to know yourself to evaluate that, and working with a professional can kind of be objective and point that out. It's like, oh yeah, really? I tell you, it's funny. I had a physician,
I guess time maybe or.
I had a physician assistant that asked me. I wasn't asking it during the few days they were here or something, and they looked at me. She's like, I thought you would ask the question, about how do you feel? I don't hear you ask that directly as much. And I thought, I do that all the time in therapy, but I guess not during their thing. And now I'm aware of it every time I ask it. Wait a minute. How do you feel about what it is that you're describing? And we'll stop in a therapy session, and I'll see the intellectualization going on. I got it, sort of. The intellectualization going on.
He ruined it too, didn't he?
To where you're avoiding and not being on the emotional level. You're just staying up in the heady space. Like we live, in our heads so much, but there's so much shoulder down that we're feeling and that we're experiencing that is really important and lost. So that's a really important factor about the avoidance of the way that you're feeling. So you dial into that emotional stance, that emotional circumstance that is just avoided and missed. Here's 3 questions that we asked with this particular episode. Do you understand what intellectualization really refers to? We've reviewed that pretty well. Do you use this strategy as a coping mechanism to really get you layered into thinking about it? And then what bad effects does this have on me and my relationships? Those are the pondering questions of that episode. Let's jump to where we landed, right? So if we're not going to do this, I don't know. I don't have a huge amount of time to convince you what's all bad about it. You got to listen to that episode when we took a deeper dive on it. But when you think about what to do instead, it was a nice list of identifying, what emotions are that you have. That's the big piece about all this is you're getting back into or really down onto the foundational level of what you're really experiencing. That's what people want to avoid. And then you find a way to express them. I have a challenge that I'll give to you with this. And then you speak to those, we spoke intensely to those people. I love this. Adam, you might even have said this yourself at some point. I'm just not an emotional person. I just let stuff roll off my back. Stuff just doesn't bother me. Do you ever?
I mean, I try to be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not always. Yeah.
How well does that work?
I mean, you gotta try.
I say that because I know him is my buddy, and it's unrealistic, man. Can I say that without pissing you off?
You gotta try though. You gotta try not let things bother you.
Do you though? Because when something is going on, it's either bothering you, exciting you, hurting you, making you fearful. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about being a naive, wear your emotions on your sleeve all the time kind of thing. I mean, that's not, you got to still live. But there are so many people that fall into these types of beliefs that are using intellectualization, and the drawbacks come with it. So, like I'm saying, we all have feelings, we all have emotions. But let's go on a little bit. So feeling your feelings. There's so many benefits in doing that, which is opposite than intellectualization, right? We landed on the idea of letting go of the emotions you have, which is what ultimately you're trying to do when you sort of just let it roll off your back, right? But you can heal from stuff, you can learn from stuff, you can engage the truth, that you have in your gut, in your experience with things. All of these are payoffs. This is what we want to do instead of intellectualization. Also landed on practicing mindfulness. We know a lot about mindfulness. It's a popular term nowadays. But also when you decrease your use of avoiding emotions and being too logical about it, you enable yourself to get help and to have support. When you just try to live life and keep going on, you really can't get support. People don't know what the hell's going on with you, and you're not telling them. And then also what you do instead is of intellectualizing, you improve your skills on, the regulation of emotion, right? So there's a theme in our shows about how do you manage emotion. I mean, we wrote a whole book on it, and I think it's important to kind of realize you can't realistically just be into your feelings or into your thoughts and just avoid the emotion of it. What happened in the show, I think, Neil, is that I never did get to the book quotes. Did we talk about that? Because I think Victoria and Kasie, we all went off on, and I never got the
I don't
the
think
quotes
you
that I
did.
was
I
gonna
don't think
do
you
that now?
did.
I don't know that we have time again. That's what I'm laughing inside myself. We need to move on to the next one. But am I correct?
I don't. One of the shows we didn't get to the quotes. I don't remember if that one or if it was a different one. But yeah, when you have the panels, the biggest issue with the panels is there's so much valuable insight from John and Victoria and Kasie, and it's just Chris does his best to get as much information as he can and tries to follow it. But there's just so much good stuff coming from all three of them. It's so hard, but
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I think this was one of them. I mean, I guess I'll throw them out there, Adam. because they were really apropos and connected to intellectualization. I didn't do that intentionally, but chapter 18 of Through a Therapist's Eyes, Re-Understanding Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self, which would be a great Christmas present.
Or Valentine's.
Or New Year's. Let's start the new year out right. No, I got a new book coming out people are going to be excited about with marriage. I'm still slow cooking it, but I'm about ready to kick up the pace hardcore on finishing that puppy off. So the chapter 18, when we are the angriest, the more powerful I statements become, was I think a very connected chapter, right? Because you're really getting into forcing yourself when you make I statements of identifying yourself and what's going on with that. And when you're intellectualizing, you're just not doing that. And then the other one was chapter 25. We are constantly a new or reconstituted self. We are not our quote unquote old self. Do allow for change in self. Don't be that old dog with new tricks. And I think that speaks to, like, can you just not let things bother you and let them roll off your back, like, being kind of unrealistic. I feel like I'm talking too much, and you all are just staring at me. Stop that.
Well, I think
you'll see the YouTube live. Yeah. He just dropped his head into the microphone. Adam did. I think he's mocking me.
But I think it goes back to, because I definitely lean towards the intellectualization and my personality, my engulfment, my introverted, like everything. This is how I live my life. Yeah. And the issue that, when I deal with, with my wife and family and all that stuff, it's the emotions happen whether I want them to or not. And if I don't address them, it becomes worse and worse and worse. It's like taking a Coke and a Mentos, shoving the every Mentos is an emotion with me closing the lid every time. And eventually gets to that point where the lid can't hold it. And so that's why intellectualization as a defense mechanism is so bad, because I know that I've had, you get those explosions because your emotions just can't handle it. So it takes that simple conversation, and next thing you know, you're yelling at your spouse or your kid because you never told them about the thing that bothered you 3 years ago. So, and that's why you need to feel your emotions and handle them.
Love the Mentos metaphor.
So that's the problem with intellectualization.
Well, there's lots of problems, honestly, with it. I mean, it is something that we do to, when we're trying to be just grounded with something. But this is, again, I can't emphasize enough. It's avoiding stuff. It's shutting things down intently. It's being numb to what it is that you're feeling, and then we just stay in our head. And you're right. We didn't get to talk about it enough. This is kind of added content where I really kind of wanted to talk more about engulfment tendencies. And I'm not picking on you people. I say you people because I'm the abandonment, and y'all are more engulfment. Like you said, I really kind of feel like there's more prone tendencies to that, like you were just saying.
I think that is just part of the personalities. I think that's what it is. And I'm sure you do have abandonment people who do it.
Oh yeah, we do. But, no doubt about it. But I think I do that for sure.
But I definitely see this as a defense mechanism that you would see more in the engulfment type personalities. Definitely. Yeah, I definitely can relate to that one. So, and my wife, well, we've had many conversations, and she gets so mad at me because she's the opposite. So, and that's what makes it work so well.
I'm giggling because somebody on Facebook Live is like, "Where's the Pope?"
Yeah, he said he was engulfment too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yes. Well, he got confused at the term. Yeah. But good stuff. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Let's move on. So what did you say your favorite one was? The intellectualization. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really wanted to talk about this one with you.
Okay.
So, yeah. So 209, we talked about, can you control your mind and heart? What says you, Mr. Cloninger? Can you control your mind? Can you control your heart? Do you just feel what you feel and that's all that you can do? You can't control, like, I feel the way I feel. What am I going to do?
No, I'd say you can control it to a certain extent. I mean, the other article that we didn't go into, and I won't go into it, but there was some things about the article that bothered me, and that's kind of why I had it in my mind. But the same time, I'm like, okay, let me find out a little more about this. And then as I read more about it, okay, it's not quite as bad as I thought it was. So I've kind of calmed myself down after reading more about it.
Okay.
Did you get clickbaited? Like the headline throw you off and you read it, get so mad at it, you have to read the rest of it?
No, because I mean,
I hate those.
I'm trying to, without telling you, there was things that were brought up, and at face value, if you hear just part of it, you're like, oh, that really pisses me off.
All right, you're killing the audience. You're killing us.
They
What
have
is
to-
the topic?
They have
Just
to
do it.
No, they have to tune in next month.
You're
It's
gonna
a
pull me down.
cliffhanger.
Okay.
But what if?
All right,
what if I
total
don't pick it
cliffhanger.
next month though?
Well, we'll just guarantee we'll have to pick it. Maybe we'll have to do
Okay.
that where he picks.
No, I'm not changing the game. I'm going to go back and try to push it. Go ahead. What's the story? We'll have
You
two
want to know what it is?
Just briefly. It's killing everybody.
Stanford's list.
Oh, the woke list.
Yes.
Oh, God. Stanford had a woke list?
So basically,
I know
the
nothing of this.
Stanford IT decided to put out a list of words and phrases they say could be hurtful to, and I think it was mainly to people with a disability, which I was unaware of that at first. So there were certain words on there they didn't want you to use anymore.
Oh, dear God.
And
Yeah.
well, one of them that really bothered me at first was brave. But then I found out they're not referring to, you being brave.
Yeah.
They're referring to the noun brave.
Is there a noun?
Yeah.
What is that?
Like a
A noun?
Native American noun.
Yeah,
But
like the Atlanta Braves. I mean,
Yeah,
okay.
But when would you use that in the context of like a meeting or
Yeah,
correspondence?
I don't
that
know.
threw me for a loop immediately because I don't use that word as a
Because I saw
noun.
some of that too, and like when
Where
it
would
was
IT
like,
use that? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny that IT would provide it because I know being in IT, like we're like the worst people that you wanted to say what's like, like
Yeah, right.
politically correct and like
Yeah,
thinking about other people's feelings. Like we're not that wasn't created by IT. That was created by like the marketing
Somebody
or
for
HR.
IT.
That
IT
for
people tend to intellectualize things.
So there was a couple other terms, and you've already used a couple of them since we started the show.
I have?
Yes.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so insensitive.
Addicted.
What?
Yep. They don't want you to use addicted anymore. They want you to use the term a person with an addiction.
They also triggered as another triggered warning. They say don't. They had like content like email content or something or show content versus triggered warning.
All right, I'm
They
getting
had-
us
they-
out of
they
here,
had,
man.
like,
I'm
the other
pulling us
one-
out of
The
here.
other one's like a stand-up meeting, like a quick stand, like because there's people with disabilities that can't stand up and they
Right,
don't want you to
right.
say it. So they're like I said, the intention is there. It's
Yeah.
just the question is how do people use that and
I'm
what does that
trying to
mean?
Yeah,
pull
and
us
like
out of
like
here.
I said, the more I read about it, it wasn't as bad. I mean, I was a little upset about it at first. I'm like,
You're just mad because you use a lot of the phrases.
no, I'm not. I'm actually, I can after I read all of them, I can actually see there's some I don't use. I think are offensive, but well, for example, and I can see this being something that kind of doesn't apply to Chris because he does evaluations and like
Sure.
So the term OCD, they don't want you to use that anymore because, I mean, if it's a diagnosis, it's one thing, but they want you to use detail oriented.
Oh, well, that's a cultural use of the
Right. So,
term.
like I said, the more I learned about what they're trying to do with the list, I understood more.
Got you.
Okay.
Got you. Yeah.
So that's
But that goes back to controlling your heart and mind. When you read this, your heart
job.
is
Thank
like
you, Neil. Thank you,
mad.
thank you, thank you.
But as you read it, your mind kicks in and be like, wait, hang on. Why am I getting mad? Why am I getting emotional about it? What's going on? And
Well, right, and that is, can you control your mind and can you control your heart? The three questions that we had there to think about was, do you believe that I feel the way I feel and there's no changing that? That was a driving part of what my brain was thinking about with that particular show. Second question, how do I focus my mind on what I choose it to be focused on? Yet we need to be able to have that skill set. And then thirdly, will the heart follow? I love this. Think about this now, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Will the heart follow where your mind goes, or does your mind go where your heart is? Let me say that again. Pop me an answer, too. Will the heart follow where your mind goes, or does your mind go where your heart is? It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I can see it both ways, though. I mean, I think you can kind of go in both directions.
I think you kind of need to go.
Yeah, I mean, you can. You're thinking about something, and you're the topic a minute ago.
Yeah,
my heart was that's a bunch of crap.
right.
But learn more about it, and now I'm okay with it. It's not as bad as I thought it was.
It even is a little bit about being prudent in your decisions about COVID, where we started off today with your reel in the news with Adam. We got bonus content with that today, but you can't be prudent if you're driven by fear or driven by avoidance, the intellectualization topic, And so these things, we need to learn how to corral our whole emotional systems, because they will take us off into various directions in all sorts of ways. On the show with Victoria and John, I think that were there, this is where Kasie missed, we talked a lot about affairs that people have. People fall into these kind of relationships thinking, well, I feel the way I feel, I can't do anything about that, right?
So you're just saying you need to use your mind and your heart.
Yes, OMG, yes.
I go along with that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a big part of where we landed. We landed on using both. It's kind of like my favorite show title, Use Your Head or Trust Your Gut, when Craig and I did that a couple years ago. You can't just use your head. It's a great phrase. You can't just trust your gut either, though. Otherwise, you're not going to be using your intellect. You've got to combine that, your emotion and your intellect. We are a whole person to use all of that. And when I literally, it makes me kind of laugh when I hear people say the phrase like, well, I just feel the way I feel. What can I do about that? That's where the heart is, So I'm screwed. Can't do anything about it. I'm like, my God, my whole industry is about managing your feelings.
Why are you here?
Right? All of psychology is to manage the way that you're feeling. Otherwise, we'd be hedonistic and have a new sex partner every 2 years. You ever think about it?
No, I don't think about that.
Right? Well, okay, good. Julie's very appreciative of that. But emotionally, that's what we'll be guided towards. Because after you're with somebody for a certain amount of time, you don't even have oxytocin flowing in your system anymore. You know what oxytocin is? Oxytocin is a hormone that helps you feel a whole level of attraction towards your partner. That drops. It bottoms out after you're there with somebody for a little while. So again, your feelings are going to be all over the place, and you've got to be able to channel into your intellect and match it with your emotion so that you can manage in a grounded and mindful way the decisions that you're making. Don't have that affair, ma'am. Avoid that stuff, sir, because you have an obligation to, and your well-being depends upon it. Because it's a mess when you get into the stuff that emotions just drive you into. So we have to manage it with our intellect, in addition to trusting what it is that you feel. You don't get into a relationship just because, oh, they bought me flowers and cake. You know what that is? It's called love bombing and leads to domestic violence. Right? So this is a super, I don't know. I'm going to drop off of it. I feel like I'm talking again too long. Because you got to manage your heart and you got to manage your mind.
We still got a whole nother episode to talk about, too.
I know, right? Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to the idea that when you get married, you have to make that choice every day to continue to that commitment. And same thing with kids or your job. I think it's a big crack in today's society that if you don't find passion in your job anymore, you need to go find another one because you have to have that passion, that fire, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's a job.
Yeah.
If you go find another job, guess what? After 6 months, you're not going to have that passion anymore. Just like, when you have kids, you love your kids, they're great. 6 months in, you're like, I'm sleep deprived. You're like, so
which Victoria was here for that, yeah.
Right, and so, but that's the thing. That's why the mind is so. That's what makes us different from the animals. Is the fact that we have the intellect to then push us past our emotions. And so I think that's the important thing that I feel as a society, we rely too much on your statement of, oh, it's just the way I feel, I can't do anything about it. Or this post made me so mad, I just can't deal with it. Or this, I think this just the way society's become, where that we've become so driven by our emotions without the context of, well, you have to think about what those emotions mean after the fact or during it.
So you actually get people to come here and say, that's just the way I am. What can I do about it? I'm just confused why they would even come to the.
Their spouse made them.
Well, and that's what that was my next thing. Is it because she said I had to be here? Is it like that? Is that what it is?
It's funny, Neil, because I do get
Yeah.
some of that. I won't say a lot of that, but I do get some of that for sure. And yeah, it's a good question, Adam, because I think that people honestly come to a therapy experience and still feel helpless about the way that they feel. I really feel like part of what we do, young therapists listening out there, is empower people to understand, yeah, I can deal with this depression. Yes, I have bipolar disorder. That's a biological thing that makes me get manic and whatnot, but I can manage my sleep. People that have sleep trouble, it's a desperate feeling of helplessness. Yes, no, I think people are here oftentimes in a therapy experience feeling like they can't manage the way that they feel, or at least they say, here's the key, can I just dramatic pause this? I don't know how to manage the way that I feel. Even if somebody thinks, okay, well, yeah, I guess I can. Sure, I can. Okay, great. I get it. You have a whole industry based on this. But I don't know how to deal with the way that I feel. What do I do? I hear that question all the time. I want skills. I want, answer the question, man. Tell me, what do I do?
Well, there's a reason why there's a whole industry around it, because a lot of people just don't have the skills anymore.
Right.
That,
there's some interesting things. I was listening on a radio program the other day, but I guess I won't go into it. But they're kind of talking about developed countries and the challenges that we have with dopamine now, because we manage the way that we feel with unhealthy or unproductive things. Scroll, game, buy, and
I can't stand commercials now.
I know.
Oh man, I just can't do
I
it.
am against
I have no like.
I watched
No
the
patience at
the
all.
kids commercials, and I'm like, oh god, I remember watching this when I was a kid, and you're like, I want this, and then like you see it now, I'm like, oh, they're evil. A lot of those commercials but it goes, I mean, in today's society, in these developed countries, part of the thing is we have such a luxury that we don't have the survival that we used to. In the 1900s we had to survive and farm, and now we're just like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store, buy my food, and spend all my day looking at my phone. And so it's just it goes back to not having the resiliency, or having we have the luxury to deal with our emotions, or let our emotions overrun us.
Well, we need to get to the third show that we want to review, but I see a Facebook Live statement. It's interesting. Yeah, John, I hear you, right? He says the heart follows where the mind goes. But, I mean, the thing is, how can I say this, right? Like, with some strength behind it. Our minds do get trapped into what it is that we see, what it is that we're thinking, what it is that we're focused on. And so in my book, one of the 4 big areas that I ended up wrapping things into was focus points, choosing focus points. What is it that you're focusing on? I mean, proverbial glass half empty or glass half full. What you're focusing on begins to drive how it is that you feel. So choose wisely, choose carefully, and be aware of what you're choosing to focus on. I could go on and on about that. Guess it's getting an honorable mention here, but if you choose to focus on I'll make it into the affair where this affects a lot of people. If you choose to focus on that coworker and all the positive attributes about them, what do you think you're going to feel?
Right.
I think John Pope said your neighbor said, like, you find what you're looking for.
Yes. No,
I was
buddy
going to say
Adrian
that too. It's kind of like science. You're
you
looking.
have a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, you're right. It was my buddy Adrian. Good shout out to him. He said that, and so depthy. If you think about that, you find what you're looking for. Your focus points are really important. What you focus on and you can control that. You're a human being.
And you can also find evidence for something that doesn't exist because your mind's all focused on. It's got to be this
stuff, man. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last show that we are reviewing here, which was dealing with failure, right? Although I wanted to get that in. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Dealing with Failure, episode 210, not 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So episode 10, 210, Dealing with Failure, the 3 questions. I forgot to create them. You remember that?
Yeah, I think I got some part of the show notes, but yeah, you forgot the.
It has been the holiday season.
So you had 3 questions you were going to put on the show, but
Didn't
forgot,
even create them.
Forgot. Okay.
Didn't create them.
He failed.
Content creator failed. So you get bonus material for sure today with what are the biggest perceived failures that you've had in your life is something to think about. And then on that show, another second question to think about would be how do you define what it is that do you suppose, right? How do you define what it is that failure is? And then thirdly, how do you manage the feelings when failure occur? I feel like that was a big thing that we sort of landed on. What do you do to manage it? Any idea, Neil, you remember? I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you remember one of the things we added that was, I think, an original part on me that I felt was a big deal, a big part of it nobody talks about when you fail, what you need to do as a pretty much a first step to dealing with that?
I'll take a guess if you
Oh,
don't know.
Yeah, go ahead and take a guess.
You got to think about why did you fail?
Okay. Not where I went,
Okay.
but a good important thing. What's your why? We talked about that.
Well, I know one of the thing was, and I don't know, this is what stood out to me is, it was how do you determine if it was actually a failure or not?
Right.
Was one of the other, but there was one thing before that. I'm trying to think of the show notes in my head, like go to my mind palace, like what was that other bullet? And I can't remember what it is.
It was grief.
Right, because failure is a loss.
Right. A lot of people that are in motivational circles or, success seekers, Tony Robbins a la, right? Like, they'll talk a lot about like, how do you get up? It's not, and there's hundreds of quotes. And I'm going to go through the quotes again real quick because I thought they were so cool. But there's hundreds of quotes and hundreds of thoughts that people present about, you fail, you get up, you go again, and you survive and you thrive by trying and trying and trying again. And I love all of those things. I love these quotes that I want to hit again. But the thing of it is if you have a failure, there's a loss there that's in that, and there's not a sign of a weakness. It's not a waste of time. You don't just get back up and go at the goal again. You have to grieve the loss that you had, and sometimes that can go very quickly if you're managing your emotion. So I'm not talking about days and weeks of grieving, but you have to recognize I did not meet my goal, and I'm sad about that. And I'm going to redirect my efforts and energies. I'm going to choose my focus point. As you said, Neil, I had these 3 shows kind of pulled together a little bit. And go at it again in a different way. I will persevere. I mean, that's great. But it's okay to stop and deal with the loss so that you're not just failure after failure after failure, because people will stop your goals. And, we're just on the eve of New Year's Eve goals, and what is the quote? Do y'all know how long New Year's Eve resolutions last?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was guessing, but I figured that's be accurate.
You were guessing? You
I figured that'd be right.
You had pretty good conviction. I think I remember 2 days. Just by recollection.
I'm getting shredded next year.
You're getting shredded?
I'm gonna get shredded. I'm
Gonna get new
What does that
grader.
even mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna get shredded. I'm gonna get worked out. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do some Spartan races this year. You up for it?
Yeah, sure.
Chris said he was gonna do one.
I did not say that. I know myself. My mastermind group did the 20X or whatever. I know where I'm at, but I am getting well this year. I've already started. Look at these quotes. I love these popular quotes and phrases. Failure isn't failure, but failure to change might be. John Wooden said that. Success is most often achieved by those who don't know that failure is inevitable. Coco Channel.
Chanel.
Shit. Coco shit. Yeah. Coco Chanel. Thank you. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Robert F. Kennedy. Giving up is the only sure way to fail. Gina Showalter. When you take risks, you learn that there will be times when you succeed and there will be times when you fail, and both are equally important. Ellen DeGeneres. Who was it? Somebody loved this one. Victoria used it all the time in her classes with kids. Right? I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Remember who that was?
Edison.
Thomas Edison. Right? Pain is temporary. Quitting lasts forever. Lance Armstrong. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill, and my favorite Winston Churchill quote, if you're going through hell, then keep going. I love these quotes. I love this motivational stuff. But failure is real, and I fear, particularly on the eve, when did that show come out? Yeah, it's obviously out now. It just came out.
It just came out this week.
Perfect timing for New Year's reorganization, New Year's resolutions, they say, New Year's renewal. We get really big around this type of thing. And then, daggum, 2 weeks later, it's back in the doldrums of I fail, I suck, I'm not going to get this done.
Are y'all familiar with the term PDCA?
No.
Plan, Do, Check, Act.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before.
It's really if you're going to be successful at anything, you got to do that.
So like a SMART goal where you have
When you
I've heard of SMART goals, too.
I mean, you plan something, you do it, you verify that you got the results you wanted, and then you make action to do something
I'm good at the
different,
first
and then
one.
you plan it again.
the D's the problem. The do.
Well, you
We're going back to procrastination.
but any kind of event you do, you need to do PDCAs all the time, not like just a one-time thing or just stop on D or whatever. You can't be complacent. You gotta get to a certain after you get you're successful, but then don't assume that's the best you can do. You gotta.
It's a mentality,
plan it and
right?
do it. Yeah.
When I started writing this second book, now I'm an experienced author, right? "Quote unquote," I say with a giggle out of the sarcasm.
And you're actually
if
an
you didn't know.
Amazon bestseller. Don't forget.
Well,
You
this is
actually
true,
are
but
an
the
Amazon
thing.
bestseller.
But the thing is, look, I had the goal of doing this second book the same as the first book, and it was just one chapter a week, a little bit at a time. Look, do you think I've done one chapter a week of this book? No. I failed at the way that I wanted to write the second book. Now, I could be bummed about that. I could be frustrated about that. Lots of people have talked about, well, I want to write a book. I have lots of thoughts. And listen, I suggest you get out there and do it. Don't just say it. Do it. It's like what you just said, Adam. But the thing is if you don't do it the way you think it's supposed to be done, do I just stop writing that project? No. I pick it up in the way that I can get to it and do a little bit at a time. Just what's the next step? I love my pastor that actually says that. He's just, what's the next best step that I can take? If we could just stay there, we'll be in a whole lot better position, and you'll probably experience a whole lot less failure in your life, right? So where do we leave? Where do we land, rather? I think that I've already kind of covered a lot of the super importance of grieving the loss of that. I think I'm actually going to just go with the bonus article that we didn't get any time to talk about when we did that show, actually. It was from Very Well Mind.
Like
What's
a
that?
news article? Or?
This is Very Well Mind, has some cool things that I back myself up on when I'm doing. And we talked a lot about these on the show. So here's the list real quick. They say, what do you do when you're feeling like a failure, right? Very overwhelmed mind, or Very Well Mind. Healthy ways to cope with failure. Embrace your emotions. Recognize unhealthy attempts to reduce pain. Practice healthy coping skills. Acknowledge irrational beliefs about failure. Love that one. Irrational beliefs. Be careful and acknowledge them. Develop realistic thoughts about failure. Accept an appropriate level of responsibility because you failed. That's okay. Research famous failures just to help you cope with, Thomas Edison's 10,000 ways it doesn't work. That's literally the way most things are experienced, or not experienced, discovered by failing, and then you make this big discovery. Ask yourself what you can learn, create a plan for moving forward, and face your fears of, failure or, failing again, per se. So, failure is something that we all have, we're all dealing with, we're all coping with, and, happens just way out of the norm in human experience. Dead air!
You kind of didn't leave us much with that conversation, but
I know.
that
No,
ending.
I get to talking. I get excited about the topics that we have.
No, I was just noticing
Yeah.
something that I didn't notice before until Neil mentioned it on one of the shows past. You do miss that microphone an awful lot.
I know, right? Well,
I never paid attention to it, but yeah, you do miss that an awful lot.
I'm reading, I'm moving, I'm thinking and talk. Yeah, I do a lot of movement. I know, right?
I think looking at dealing with failure, one thing's, you talk about the New Year's resolutions, you look at weight loss, you look at fitnesses. I think one of the things, and I think it kind of covers some of this part, like I think it's worded differently, but the idea that you have to have forgiveness. So when you fail, you have to forgive yourself for being okay with that you failed, so you can move on and do it again, or you can try again. Because I think it goes back to that grief and that loss. You don't want to paralyze you, and you see that a lot with personal trainers, where they give them a diet or they give them a workout and they miss a day, or they eat that cake, and then like instead of just being like, oh, okay, I missed a day, let me go back tomorrow, or I had cake. They just like,
Quit.
oh, everything's done.
It's just all the progress that you've made stops. It sucks, yeah.
There was one thing I saw on Instagram. Someone posted like, because some people can't do like, you do 30-day challenges. I'm going to do this every day for 30 days. And someone mentioned like one thing you could do is, if you don't think you can do 30 days straight, set it for like 30 days where you don't miss more than 2 days in a row, or more than 1 day in a row. So like if you go and say you work out, you go like a week and then you skip a day, just make it to where you only skip 1 day. And it kind of gets where you start getting to that discipline where you're not beating yourself up because I'm trying to go 30 days. I didn't even make it 30. Like, okay, well, I missed this day. Well, let me just make sure I don't miss 2. And so it's kind of gives yourself that those
grace.
Those systems. Yeah. And that grace to be like, okay, yeah, I'm human. I make mistakes. And
So it's like
I
2
move
sick
forward.
days a month or something.
Something like that. Yeah. Not 2 sick days in a row. You can have 2 in a month, just not in a row,
Okay.
So that was a neat thing that I saw. That's like, yeah, I can see that how some people, depending how much they beat themselves up, because there's a lot of people that I feel like there's different degrees of people that learn in how they deal with failure.
Yeah.
Some people, it happens and it's catastrophic and they can't move past. And some people, and I think it could be from practice, like Thomas Edison failing 10,000 times, he just got so numb to it. It's like, okay, I failed, move on. But some people, like, they tried one thing, they fail, like, that's like the next 6 months. They can't do anything, Yeah,
you're absolutely right that it's part of the grieving process to figure out, the grace and allowing yourself to fail. I mean, it is something that we feel so much pressure. First world problems, right? I have to produce. I can't make a mistake. I've got to be on my game. I got to be on point. Never let them see you sweat. We have all these phrases too. And we don't have room to fail, to screw up, to allow ourselves the break. And so grace is, it's funny. We're so willing to forgive and relax with other people when they fail. But when we fail ourselves, oh my God.
And point out.
And what?
And point out.
Yes.
You really screwed up, man.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we're a little nicer than Adam is when people fail. But seriously, we're not nice to ourselves when we screw up. And it doesn't allow us to kind of get back on the saddle to move again and whatnot. So what do you think, Adam? A good month of shows?
Yep.
A little
Yep,
coordinated in topic?
Yep. So you like the episode, the little part about the news then?
I do. I think that's going to be cool. I'll be curious what you come up with. It keeps us fresh. Which, actually, what is it? We need to get out of here, I think, today. I intended to kind of add it to your current event, to revisit the current event that we did. I guess I can do it now because we talked about a current event, with one of the episodes. I do not remember which, but remember, Neil, like not having treatment beds even available. Not like they're all full, meaning we don't have them. You'll have to tune into the longer conversation. Victoria was just like, oh my God, I know. Right.
I feel healthcare in general with resources is just so screwed up right now with COVID and the lack of nurses, the lack of practitioners, the lack of so many things are so messed up with healthcare, not even just mental health, but you're right. Mental health. I mean, some people need that that location they can go to. They can't just do it virtually. They can't just
No.
go to an office. They need that 24/7. And the fact, like you said, there's not even anyone nearby. You said what the nearest was
Reno, Nevada.
Yeah, I was gonna say Vegas, but yeah, I mean that's pitiful that there is no inpatient mental health.
And just to be
area
clear with the
here.
current event, it was adolescent, inpatient, long-term care for high acute psychological needs such as suicidality and this type of thing. You can go to your emergency room, you can get into a state facility to get suicidal care. So don't get me wrong, but for long-term care, yeah, that's what we were talking about. Reno, Nevada. They've shut down a lot of the programs for adolescent beds specifically. So pissed me off, Adam. I mean, it really just got me very frustrated because I had a personal friend that needed treatment, and,
Right?
And they couldn't get it. It's crazy.
Sounds like he needs to control his heart and mind with this situation.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Closing thoughts. We are going to do the next time a January month in review, first of 2023. I don't know. I think that we ended 2022 in pretty good fashion with this panel. I really do, and I think it's been fun to do.
So when's the book coming out?
2023. Well, I don't know. Well, it'll be done in 2023 for sure, and I'm going to start fast tracking this thing, man. I'm going to start banging it.
Okay.
I'm going to start banging it and get it. But there's a whole bunch of things that go on with getting the thing edited. Having the publishers go through all that kind of stuff. So it should be. You know what? I will make the goal and commitment to have this available
That's
to you
kinda what
by
I was
December
getting to.
2023. How about that? That's
Kind of what I was getting at.
Christmas gift.
Goal.
Just what your wife wants. A book about marriage and therapy. Just
she won't read it. Don't worry.
tie it next to the vacuum in the treadmill.
Actually, you know what? She actually kind of made the comment at some point. She's like, I think I'll check that one out. I'm like, oh my gosh. It scared me, but that's okay. It scared me, but that's okay. So 2022 is a wrap. This is December the 29th, the month in review for December. We're going to have our panel continuing to go on with Victoria Pendergrass, the young one, Kasie Morgan, the first half of her career, myself, Chris Gazdick, at the second half of my career, and the Pope is the round off of the panel that is going to stick with us, as far as I know, for 2023 through A Therapist's Eyes. It's been a great ride so far. We're going to continue the journey because we want to endeavor to figure this thing out together. Guys, we'll charge into the new year with you. Take care. Happy New Year.